Konnichiwa! In today's show, we're going to be checking out the Nintendo Switch's top 5 retro games that you should get for your system. Game on! I love my Nintendo Switch. It is my favourite console of this generation, and whilst it doesn't have the graphical power and oomph of the PlayStation 4, it still has some amazing games on there, and some of my best games are retro games. Now I have a massive commute, 4 hours a day I do, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours on the way back. And my Nintendo Switch is an absolute godsend, especially when I can play AAA games like Breath of the Wild on the train and then carry on the experience when I get home. But one of the things I've absolutely fallen in love with over the last 12 months is retro games and new retro games that have appeared on the platform. The Nintendo Switch has become the de facto for playing your classic old games on a modern system, and it's introduced a ton of amazing brand new retro games. In today's show, I'm going to be looking at 5 of my favourite retro games that I love to play on this console, and they're a mixture of classic retro and modern retro. Now before we get into the top 5, it's worth calling out some honourable mentions. Recently released, we've just got an HD version of Turok 2. Plus, we have the Doom collection, Doom 1, Doom 2 and Doom 3 out on the console. Stranger Things 3, the game, is a brilliant modern retro game. And of course you want to pick up Street Fighter 2, the 30th anniversary edition, which has a ton of versions of the game, including the original. There's a Capcom Beat-em-Ups collection, which is just amazing. There's Metal Slug, Samurai Showdown, King of Fighters 98, Blazing Star, Pulsar. In fact, just search for Neo Geo. There's a ton of classic games there for you to play. There's a Mega Man Legacy collection, Cuphead. Cuphead is brilliant. You've definitely got to get that.
Well, Cuphead's on his way. He's found one man in tow. Going adventuring to escape the devil's throat. You can play at your home, but now here's something rich. You can play while you roam. Cuphead's coming to Switch.
Stardew Valley and Final Fantasy VII, and the list goes on and continues to grow. So many brilliant games, retro games, modern and classic, out on the Nintendo Switch. But now it's time to check out my top 5. So first up, we have The Way Remastered. Now I came across this game by checking out the Nintendo Store's offers page. I actually had this for 89p, which is like less than $1. And I actually had the exact amount of Nintendo Go coins. So I got the game for free. Now the game is stunning. It's just brilliant. It reminds me of games like Beneath the Steel Sky, and even closer, Another World, and even Flashback. But it is so much more. Being a modern retro game, it has the classic art style of those games, the theme, the setting, the storyline of those games. But where Beneath the Steel Sky had puzzles where you had to collect different items and then use those on different characters, the gating mechanic in The Way for progression is more physical based puzzles, more kind of platform jumping. A lot more like the puzzles that we see in Flashback. Now later on you do get different powers or skills that you can utilise, and the way the game gets you to kind of solve these puzzles is just genius at times. Now I don't want to spoil the story for you, but it is definitely worth getting this game. It will really bring back that nostalgia, especially if you've ever played Broken Sword or, like I said, Beneath the Steel Sky, but worth picking up. Definitely at the price it is now. If it isn't free still with gold coins, then it's going to be super cheap and definitely worth getting. And number 4, we have one of my all-time favourite modern retro games, and that's Hotline Miami Collection. Now the Hotline Miami series is a top-down shooter that mixes stealth, strategy and extreme violence all together in a surreal 80s serial killer type setting. You will have so much fun with this game. The extreme violence is just comical at times. You pretty much start off every level with no weapons, and so when you first get into the game, you spend a lot of time kind of sneaking and trying to be clever about how you get around the environment and meet your goals. But very soon you'll find yourself running through trying to kill as many baddies as you can. Speed running death. It's a great game and one that should definitely sit on your Nintendo Switch home screen. Now at number 3, I'm going to cheat a little because I'm not going to show you just one classic retro game. I'm going to show you over 60 classic retro games with the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis collection and the Sega Ages collection on the Nintendo Switch Digital Store. Now the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis collection has come out on a number of systems over a number of generations. Now for me the Nintendo Switch version is the definitive version for the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis collection, and that's primarily down to the fact that I can play this collection on the go on the Nintendo Switch, and then when I get home just put it on my big screen. Now the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis collection has over 50 games on it, 51 to be precise. And there's some absolute classics in there. Trilogies like Golden Axe, the Sonic the Hedgehog series, Phantasy Stars on there, 1 and 2, brilliant. Phantasy Star alone, those games cost an absolute ton. And so if you don't want to shell out for the originals, definitely buy this collection for just one of those games. Now Sega are complementing this collection through the digital releases of their Sega Ages range. Now the Sega Ages collection only has one game that you can find on the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis collection, and that's Sonic the Hedgehog. Apart from that, all other games you won't find on the Sega Mega Drive Genesis collection. Now the games that you can find through Sega Ages apart from Sonic are Puyo Puyo, Space Harrier, Virtual Racing, Wonder Boy and Monster Land, Outrun, Gaia Ground, Alex Kidd in Miracle World, Thunder Force 4, and my favourite, Phantasy Star. Now each Sega Ages game come with new features as well as additional content that are specific to this game. For me, Phantasy Star has some amazing new features. Things like state save. I can save the game at any point, anywhere that I like. There's Ages Mode, and Ages Mode is genius for the first time player of Japanese RPG games or Phantasy Star. It essentially allows you to have less boss encounters, and if you've ever played a JRPG, you'll know how frequent those are, so it lessens those, but increases the amount of XP that you get per encounter. And for die-hard fans like me, things like weapon lists, item lists, armor lists, magic lists, and on the sidebar there is a map for dungeons. Number 2, we have Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon. Now Bloodstained Curse of the Moon pays homage to the original Castlevania on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and was a bonus game that was promised as part of the Kickstarter for Ritual of the Night if all stretch goals were met. Thank God they were, because this game is stunning. Now fans of the original Castlevania will absolutely love this game, especially because of how similar it is. Now whilst Bloodstained Curse of the Moon pays homage to classic 8-bit gaming, it does do a number of things that would have been impossible for the original Nintendo Entertainment System to do. Things like the size of sprites on screens. The bosses are stunning to look at, but just something you wouldn't be able to do on the original NES. As well as that, we have mechanics that have benefited from over 30 years of game development advancements. Now for me, some of the biggest back of the box features for Curse of the Moon is the fact that the levels have multiple routes through them, and you can go back through levels that you've completed. Not only can you go back through the levels, but you can play those levels with alternate modes. Modes that allow you to experience the game in a completely different way, like only being able to play with one character throughout the whole level, or being knocked back every time you get hit, or reduced amounts of health. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon is a brilliant modern retro game. With homage to 8-bit gaming, it does an amazing job with crafting some fantastic levels, mixing up characters and abilities, and giving us some of the most frighteningly awesome boss battles that we've seen in Christ knows how long in a game like this. At number 1, we have the NES Classics Catalogue. Now the NES Classics Catalogue is only available if you're a Nintendo Online customer. But given how cheap the service is, it's definitely worth getting for just the NES Classic Catalogue. Now the NES Classics Catalogue gets updated all the time, and so no doubt by the time this video comes out, there'll be another 3 games out on the store for you to play. Now as well as playing classic games and having features like stage save in there, you can also do things like play multiplayer games and play them locally, or you can play them online as well. Now the special version of the game does something different for every single game that has an SP release. With The Legend of Zelda, you get a ton of items early on, and you get one of the outfits early on as well. For other games, you start the game right at the end, and for some games you may start off with all the weapons and upgrades. It's a really cool addition to these classic games, and allows you to experience them in a completely different way. Now the NES Classic emulation is fantastic. In fact, if you've got one of the little mini classic consoles for the NES, then the emulation is definitely on par with that. In fact, I'd even go as far as saying it's better given that you have these extra features like the SP versions and the fact that you can play local and online multiplayer through your Nintendo Switch. And again, the Nintendo Switch's key feature of going from handheld to TV and back to handheld again is one of the main reasons why playing classic retro games are so brilliant on this console. Now lastly, the reason why the Classic Catalogue is at number 1 is because I have a ton of friends that work in Nintendo, and I've heard through the grapevine that by the end of this year we're going to have SNES classic games on our Nintendo Switches. That is going to be freaking awesome. So there's 5 classic and modern retro games that you should definitely have on your Nintendo Switch now. And if you're getting a brand new Nintendo Switch or Nintendo Switch Lite, then definitely consider getting Nintendo Online so that you can bag yourself the classic collection. It is a fantastic service with some great retro gaming games on there. And if there's a classic or modern retro game that you think everyone in the Retro Gamer Boy community should know about, make sure you stick it in the comments below. Remember, you can pick up Retro Gamer Boy swag like this from my TeePublic page. Make sure you wait until there's a discount on. It's super expensive, like £20. I don't know what there's in dollars now. It's like, well, it's probably like $20 now, to be honest. But they do have sales where it goes down to almost half price. I don't need the money, so definitely wait until they're half price before you pick anything up there. But there's some cool stuff on there, and I'll be adding more soon. And if you're new to the Retro Gamer Boy channel, make sure you subscribe by clicking on my little pixel head below. And I've got a ton of videos, 2 of which you can find over here.